Well, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? So, welcome to fifth lord in the 10th house. And what happens when the planet that controls your fifth house goes into the 10th house? And as always, if you do not know where your fifth lord is placed or where your planetary alignments are, for that, check out the links here where you can get your full astrological and numerological report, including my books, Astrology, Conjunction, and Aspects at the Speed of Light. So let's talk about fifth lord. So what is fifth house? Fifth house is a house of children, education, speculative business, dramatic media arts, creative self-expression, romance, political arena. It's a house of your, past life deeds. So it's a lot of things and quite an important part, house in astrology. Now, when the planet that controls this in your birth chart is sitting in the 10th house in your horoscope, well, what is 10th house? 10th house represents authority. 10th house represents your image into the world. 10th house represents, how your fame is into the world. How do people know you as? It's a house of vocation and career, but mainly it's about how your image is into the world. Okay? So when this planet goes into the 10th house, shows that your creative self-expression is really expressed in your professional life. It shows that you really express how creatively you can act when you're in a professional arena, whether you're acting as a profession, whether you're being artistic in your field, or you could be in a corporate field and yet you use your creativity to do things. Like if there's a marketing, like usually marketing, like when you are working in the marketing department, you're using your creativity, like how to lure people in to buy your product. And that's where these people excel because their creative self-expression is being used in a professional sphere. Now, it can also be in political arena, like they will do creative things to get the votes in politics because fifth house is politics. It goes into the 10th house. You're using your creativity to gain advantage in politics. Romance, fifth house represents romance, shows that you will find romantic interest in your work field. You will feel you will like to find your romance or romantic partner in a professional field. Although you may not find that because wherever Venus and Jupiter are placed, that's where it'll tell for man and woman where their husband and wife will be coming from. But fifth house lord in the 10th shows that your desire, fifth house is desire. What you desire is to find somebody from the professional field. And because fifth house also represents education, shows you're going to be using your education in a professional field. So education becomes a must for these people because it does show that they're going to use that in their professional sphere. And as far as children are concerned, you raise your children in a way that they can increase your image into the world. Because fifth lord is in 10th house, you're really looking for children who are out there who will look good on paper. Oh, like how in Indian families, especially in US, they're like, oh, well, my son went to Harvard and my son went to MIT and he's in a med school and he's an engineer or he's a doctor. Wow, bravo, look at my son. And that's how they like to be. They want to represent that image of themselves through their children. That, hey, look at my children. They are so good. I don't have high self-esteem myself, so I'm using my children as a catalyst to increase my image into the world. So that's what happens with this. But then depending upon what planet is, situated from the 5th house to the 10th house, it'll kind of alter as to what will happen with this position. But the main meat, the foundation will stay the same. So let's say Sun controls your 5th house and Sun goes into the 10th house. What this shows is that you will use your authority, your ego and confidence in a government position, in a political arena. Because Sun, it represents government. Sun also represents your personality. It represents your self-esteem, your ego, your confidence. And your confidence will come from when you have an authoritative position in a government environment. Because sign of Capricorn represents government. Authoritative position. Whether you are in the corporate field or government, you're gonna want to be in an executive position where you have an authority. And only when you have that, you'll be able to express yourself creatively. And you always pursue for that as well. Like you want to pursue to be an authoritative figure. So that's what it's doing. Now let's say if Moon controls your 5th house, Moon goes into the 10th house. What this shows is that your mind, your happiness, your internal mindset really expresses itself creatively when you're out there educating other people. When you're out there educating people about perhaps education or about spirituality, philosophy. It shows that the mind finds its creative self-expression when it's out there in the world expressing its emotions. It also shows that your mother herself was a very professional woman. She was this authoritative executive person in the professional sphere. And as far as children are concerned, you emotionally look for your children to provide you the authority in life. So what this is that you're emotionally wanting your children to do something big so you can emotionally feel secure because now they have the authoritative position. Let's say if Mercury controls your fifth house and Mercury goes into the 10th house, shows us somebody who will find their creative self-expression when they are diving and using their intelligence to dive into the world of mysticism, when they dive into the world of investigative things, when they use their authority to investigate things. This can also mean that when they use their intelligence and when they use their creative self-expression in a scientific field. And that's where they're like, okay, I can find my creative self-expression now because I'm in the scientific environment. I'm in an environment where I'm exploring something. And what happens is they're also very communicative with the children regarding career. They always talk to their children, listen, you have to get educated, you have to do this, and only then you'll be able to find success in life. However, creatively, they become very good writers. Creatively, they can become very good mimicking actors. And here Mercury can also make somebody a very great businessman in terms of either watery products or they can even sell scientific products, and they are just very good with that business skill, and they can find authority by using their creative self-expression into their own business. Let's say Venus controls the in the 5th house and goes into the 10th house, shows that somebody who will use their creative self-expression to find authority by being creative. So now creative self-expression is becoming creative, meaning they can be actors, singers, artists, designers, or they can be really good manager in a hotel. They can be great designing executive, meaning like marketing executive. They use their creativity into the world. And what happens is their romance is really flourishes when they find a partner with the same vocation. So when 5th Lord Venus goes into the 10th house, shows us somebody who wants a similar pattern in their life partner, whether it's acting, designing, even being in finance. That person will want to look for somebody in the same profession. Obviously, that profession will really be seen from nakshatras and divisional charts and amatya karka, but still, it shows that your ability to form relationship and get married to a person will really happen to somebody who's kind of in a similar field as yours. If Mars controls the 5th house, going to the 10th house shows that somebody who uses their physical ability to be creatively expressive in a work environment, meaning that they can be great athletes, they can make great soldiers, policemen. At the same time, they use their creativity in the government as in the court of law. So these people make great lawyers. When Mars as a 5th house goes into the 10th house, shows that they're able, because Mars is a significator or karaka of being a lawyer besides Jupiter. And what this shows is that Mars uses his ability to investigate things in order to prove something through argumentation. And what this can also show is that Mars can be this great general in the army who uses his creative self-expression to be that authoritative figure and be this energizer and motivator in a corporate field. Meaning that you love giving motivational speeches to others that, hey, get up and let's do something. So that's where your creative self-expression comes. And it also shows that you really want to make sure that your children or your students, if you're a teacher, are competitively ready. You make sure that your children are active, they are, they're in the best shape of their life physically. So if they go into sports, they can be very, competitive. At the same time, you want your children to turn sports into their vocation. Or you want their children to, whatever they choose as their hobby, into their vocation or work. And that's what Mars does. Now, let's say if Jupiter controls your 5th house and goes into the 10th house, what this shows is that Jupiter can really show somebody who is very good at counseling and advising in the government sector, somebody who's very good at counseling, advising, and being this guidance in a financial field, meaning that you can be a great financial advisor. You can be this great teacher of finance in a university setting. It also shows that you have the ability to, guide people towards their career. So like when people become like recruiters, like professional recruiters, like I've had a couple of, people who had a position similar to Jupiter being the fifth lord in the 10th house, and they were doing a professional recruiting, and they were using their creativity to find people for their company to hire. So it can represent that. It can also represent that you want to make sure that your children are professionally ready and educationally ready to take on the world of authority, take on the world of, the workplace. So you make sure that your children are well educated. But at the same time, you got to understand that fifth lord is now going sixth from itself. So if you count, from fifth house, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is the 10th house, becomes sixth from the fifth house. What this shows is that many times people find that their work becomes an obstacle in their ability to creatively express themselves. And that usually happens with mainly the malefic planets like Saturn and Mars. So like, let's say if Saturn rules your fifth house, goes into the 10th house, shows that your creative self-expression really becomes a responsibility for you. Your children becomes a responsibility for you, and that's why you have to go to the creative or professional world, to work. So these people are forced to work in a place outside of their comfort zone to provide for their children, provide for their creativity. For them, education really comes from working in a professional field, because Saturn here shows that only hard work is where the true knowledge comes from. Only through hard work and real world experience does somebody find salvation in educational field. But this is one of the very good placement to work in government or be a politician, because now here Saturn, who's the lord of the political arena, fifth house, is in the 10th house, using his full force of authority and full force of the mass voting to capture, what they want to do for their work. And how Saturn does it is by really showing the world or the people who are going to vote for them the reality of things. They're one of those politicians who dive on the negative side to win the election. They're like, look how bad the situation is. Look how this is. Look how your current prime minister or president is treating U.S. And look what he has made of you since he took office. What I will do is I will do this, this, and this. So become very realistic, and they use the dire side of life to gain authority or win the political battle. And that's how Saturn operates here. Okay, and Saturn also shows that your ability to go and make income in a speculative business like sports betting or stock market will rise steadily. It won't be sudden jump. Whatever you choose as your hobby to become a career, it'll rise slowly, and then go up. It won't be like if some other planet like Venus or Mercury is sitting, you suddenly find yourself in a steep rise or steep fall. Saturn is either slow rise or a slow fall. It's never like that dramatic. So in a way, it's a positive thing. So guys, this was my analysis of fifth lord in the 10th house. If you're new to my channel, subscribe below. And if you want to know where your 10th lord, 5th lord is placed and where other planets are, as I said, check out the links here where you can get your full astrological report and numerological report, including my books. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.